She was a nobody. No family, no friends. No one truly cared whether she ate today or died tomorrow. People didn't even know her name. They only called her the old Jewish woman at the end of the market. Every morning, she would sit in the same corner under a crumbling wall, leaning on her cane, as if the only thing holding her together was her habit of waiting to speak, waiting to complain. And every day, her favorite topic was the same: Muhammad. Not in praise, not in respect, but with anger, with bitterness. She called him a troublemaker, a liar, a man who came from Mecca just to ruin everything the elders had built. And yet, despite all her rage and all her words, someone kept coming to her, not to argue, not to fight, but to feed her, gently, silently, every single day. At first, she never cared who it was. The person never spoke, never introduced himself. Just came, fed her, wiped the crumbs from her lips, and left. Sometimes she'd curse in the middle of chewing. Sometimes she spat the food out, not because it was bad, but because her hate hadn't yet run dry. Still, he came, again, and again, and again. Strangely, her anger didn't chase him away. Instead, it slowly became part of the rhythm. She started to recognize the scent of his hands, the softness of his touch. There was something familiar in the silence, not cold, but kind. And though her words stayed harsh, something deep inside her began to change. She didn't know it yet, but her heart was learning a language far more powerful than argument, compassion without condition. Days passed, seasons changed. The market of Medina carried on with its daily noise. And yet, in the same corner, she sat, same blind eyes, same biting tongue. But slowly, something shifted. There were moments when she stopped speaking mid-insult, letting the food rest gently in her mouth. When he came late, she would fumble through the air with her trembling hands, searching for his presence. Once, he didn't come at all. She sat longer that day, not because of hunger, but because something was missing, something she hadn't yet dared to name. On the next day, when he finally arrived, she exhaled a breath she didn't know she was holding. She didn't ask who he was, but her hand reached for his, holding it just a little longer, not to stop him, but as if to say, "I'm starting to feel safe, and I don't know why." One morning, Medina was not as it used to be. The sky was still bright, the wind gentle, but something felt off. People walked slower, smiles were fewer. The market grew quiet earlier than usual, yet she sat there in her usual spot, waiting. But there were no familiar footsteps, no warm hand reaching for hers. She tilted her head toward the soundless air, sensing something was wrong, but pride whispered, maybe he's just busy. The next day, she came earlier, sat longer, still nothing. On the third day, her voice, once sharp as thorns, turned to a quiet plea. "Has anyone seen the man who feeds me? He doesn't speak, but his hands are kind, gentle. He comes every morning." But no one knew, no one could answer. And that day, she wept, not from hunger, but from a growing, aching void, the absence of someone whose name she never knew, yet whose presence had quietly become everything. That morning, a stranger approached her, the sound of his steps different, not the one she had come to know by heart. He sat down quietly, and after a long silence, he finally spoke. "The man who used to feed you has passed away. Her hands froze. Her breath caught. He died a few days ago. I came today, hoping to continue what he used to do. The man reached out, gently offering food. But she refused, not harshly, just slowly. His hand, she whispered, wasn't like yours. Her eyes, though blind, began to glisten. And then, with trembling lips, she asked, "Who was he?" The man hesitated, then answered softly, "His name was Muhammad." The world stopped. Muhammad? The very name she had cursed, mocked, spat upon? He was the one who fed her patiently, who wiped her mouth after she insulted him, who never answered her hate with hate. Her body shook, as though the earth itself had shifted beneath her. I spat on him, and he still cared for me. I cursed his name, yet he touched my hand with love. Tears flowed, not just from regret, but from a soul broken open by truth. "No man could love me like that," she whispered. "Only a prophet could." The days that followed, there were no more harsh words in that corner of the market, no more curses, no more angry shouts, only silence and whispered prayers, sometimes tears. One morning, she asked to learn how to perform ablution. Then she asked to say the Shahada. Her fingers trembled as she lifted her index finger. Her voice cracked through the sobs. "Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah." And she wept, not from fear, but because, for the first time, she felt alive. The man she once hated had become the reason she found light. Not through debate, not through preaching, but through silence and relentless kindness. From that day on, she never stopped praying for profit, not as payment, but out of love. A deep, genuine love. The kind born from being forgiven when you knew you didn't deserve it. And sometimes people would still see her sitting quietly in the same corner, whispering, "If only I could turn back time. I wish I were the first to love him, not the last to understand him." Her name never made it into books. She was never famous. But once, her heart was touched by the love of a prophet. And that was enough. Because sometimes people don't need to be defeated by arguments. They just need to be softened by mercy.